In this presentation, we will be looking at Harriet Martineau and sexism in early sociology. One very important point to mention is that during the time frame that Harriet Martineau was beginning her work and her study, sexism influenced almost every aspect of a woman's life and what it meant for her. So this isn't just a focus on sexism in sociology so much as it is highlighting sexism as it appeared during this time frame and how it influenced and impacted one particularly special person who happened to be the first female sociologist and among one of the earliest sociologists. Harriet Martineau was born in 1802 to an upper middle class family. She had a few conditions, one of which led to her being deaf by the age of 16. While most girls did not receive an education, her family insisted that all of the children receive at least a partial education, and she was able to continue her education away from what would have been her lady duties because of her disabilities. She began writing in 1832 illustrations of a public economy, 24 works, all of which were incredibly popular. And then in 1834, she visited the United States and wrote 2 more books, Society in America and Retrospective Western Travel. What she was doing was largely unheard of, seeing as most women at that point in time were only writing about domesticity or romance novels. In 1838, she published the earliest sociology text. It was How to Observe Morals and Manners. This book was the first to lay out how to help the user observe properly and then how to properly interpret what was observed. Though it is considered one of the earliest sociological texts, the feedback she got from her peers was focused mostly on her gender and less on her work necessarily. Elizabeth Barrett called her the most manlike woman of 3 kingdoms. William Howitt called her one of the finest examples of a masculine intellect in female form, and John Murray stated she was masculine in a feminine way. There was no way for the people of her time period to see her ideas as having come from a woman and had to phrase it in some manner that related it to men, who were the ones who were supposed to be doing this kind of work. She published a book with Atkinson called The Atkinson Letters, and she came out as being an atheist at this point. Atkinson was advised at the point that this book was published to publish another book so that he can repair the damage that was done as being in the same book as a woman. When she found mesmerism, which helped get her to a functional state again and where she could travel, her brother, who was a priest at the time, openly criticized her and was very harsh against all of her writings, and they broke communications with each other. She translated all of Comte's work into a readable format, so much so that Comte referred to her work instead of his own. And after her death, hardly anyone mentioned anything about her works in society and on sociology. Facts about women in sociology. Fact 1, sexism in sociology was rampant. Women had roles that had to do with the church, cooking, cleaning, and clothing. 2, Harriet Martineau was the earliest woman sociologist that is known. 3, having published her own works, Harriet is still best known for translating Comte's work into English. 4, Harriet's early disabilities let her break some of the gender chains and let her involve herself in writing. 5, Harriet was considered masculine in a feminine way, a masculine woman by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and one of the finest examples of masculine intellect in feminine form. 6, Harriet was one of the first sociologists to use a method and methodology for studying social life. There are 2 parties to the work of observation on morals and manners, the observer and the observed. 7. Harriet was often criticized for not having the false modesty of a woman or being demure about having strong opinions. 8. After her death, Harriet's ideas on sociology vanished within a few years due to the male-governed world of sociology. 9. Following her, Jane Addams became the only sociologist to win the Nobel Prize for Peace. 10. Early female sociologists also viewed sociology as a path to social reform. Multiple choice questions. Harriet Martineau's early works, Illustration of Political Economy, had how many stories? 2. In the 1830s, it wasn't considered feminine to hold a pen in public. While writings from men could be intelligent, well-thought-out pieces, what were acceptable writing styles for women? Aside from her work in London, Harriet was incredibly active and supportive of the social movement in which country? In the essay question, it is impossible to separate the sexism in sociology from the sexism in society at the time. Even though she was at a point a well-published author and she could make her own living wage in London, several of her writings were refused publications, even by publishers who printed unorthodox material. What does this tell you about the age that Martineau was attempting to reach? Thank you for listening.